Welcome to part 3 of this Blender tutorial series where we're creating this product visualization in Blender. So throughout the tutorial series, we're creating this studio microphone and we'll be doing an animation. If you haven't seen the previous parts, you can check out the tutorial playlist linked in the description. And if you'd like to help support the channel and purchase the finished project files, you can get those on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page and also the Blender Market. Now before we get started with this part, I wanted to let you know about a great Blender add-on for quick and easy texture baking. Auto Bake is a really great Blender add-on for easy texture baking. Select the object that you want to bake and then you can add any of the texture maps in the bake list. You can then change many of the settings like the name of the texture resolution, and where you want the add-on to export the textures. Then just hit the Auto Bake button and the add-on will automatically texture bake all the textures and save them as files on your computer. You can find my full add-on review video with the link in the description, and if you purchase the add-on through my affiliate link, you'll be helping to support this channel. So in this part, in part 3, we're going to be modeling the spider shock mount which the microphone sits on. So to model the shock mount, we'll center the 3D cursor into the center of the scene, we'll go to the add menu, and we're going to add a circle. And here on the circle settings, just make sure it's set to 32 vertices. Let's go to front view, and then you can see if I zoom out here, there's the Blender grids. Let's just scale this way down so it's about 2 Blender grids. So you can see there's 1 and there's 2. Just make it about that size. Let's go into edit mode, and we're going to go to the vertex select, and we're going to extrude it down so it has some thickness, and then if I select everything, we'll bring it up a bit so the origin point is there more in the center. And then we'll go back to object mode, and we're going to move the entire thing up, and we'll bring it up to about here. That's a little bit high. I'm going to bring it down a little bit farther, so it's just about a little bit higher than 1 Blender grid tall. Now let's go back into edit mode, and we also want to make it thick, so we're going to extrude it, and then we're going to scale it, and we'll hit Shift Z to scale it without scaling it on the Z, and we're just going to bring that down so it has some thickness. And then select everything, and we're going to recalculate the normals. Now let's go to top view, and I want to delete most of it so we just have a quarter of it. So we'll go to wireframe, we're just going to box select this here, and then also box select this here, so you can see just this corner here, just this 90-degree angle isn't selected. So I'll just delete the vertices, so just a quarter of it is selected, and we're now going to go here to the modifiers. We're going to add a mirror modifier, and we'll mirror it on the X and the Y. We'll also turn on clipping, so clipping is enabled, and now I can model this side, and it will mirror to the other sides. Now to make this a little bit easier to model, I'm going to go back to object mode, and in object mode, we're going to rotate it on the Z-axis by 45 degrees. So now if we go into edit mode, you can see it's facing towards us. So now I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to select the very center loop right there, and I'll add a bevel with Control B, and we're going to not scroll out our mouse wheel. We're just going to make the bevel about a square or maybe slightly longer, so just like that. And then we'll go to the face select, and we'll select this face. And we're going to go to side view by hitting 3, and we're going to extrude this down, bring it down like that, and then we're going to bring it in. And then we're also going to rotate it kind of like that so it's facing the right direction. And we're going to bring it in, and then it's going to connect right there, and we're going to have another circular piece. So we'll extrude it and then rotate it, move it over, extrude it and rotate it and move it over, and then extrude again, rotate it over, and then this time we're going to scale it on the y-axis by 0 to make sure it's fully flat, and then we'll extrude it way in and we'll make it really close to the microphone. And then if we go to wireframe, we'll use the vertex select. We can just box select everything, and we can kind of move it around and bring it down a little bit and just kind of fit it to where we want. So now that we've modeled that, I'm going to rotate it back on the Z-axis again by -45, so -45, so it's back to where it was. So if we go to top view, you can see it's just there in the corner. So now let's add a bevel modifier to kind of smooth it out. So we'll go to add modifier, we'll add a bevel to smooth out the edges. Let's just make this a bit bigger. We'll minimize the mirror, and here on the bevel, we'll turn the segments up to like a 4, and I'll drag this amount down so it's really thin. Just like that, so it's pretty small, and we'll just shade it smooth. Now I also want to just give it a subsurf modifier, so I'll hit Control 2 to give it a subdivision surface so it's even smoother, but then you can see there's some weird issues here. That's because the subdivision surface. So if we go into edit mode, we're just going to add some loop cuts. So we'll add a loop cut there, we'll add another loop cut right over there, and then we'll add another loop cut right there. So hit Control R and drag this up here. So now you can see it kind of sharpens that up and fixes the issue. But you can now see the entire thing is really nice and smooth because of the subdivision surface. So now we're going to model that little piece there, which is going to be the center of where this connects. So bring the 3D cursor to the center. We're going to go to the add menu and add another circle. And if we go here to the front view, we're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to scale it down really small, let's bring the entire thing down, and then we're going to extrude it up like that. And then back in object mode, we'll bring the entire thing up. And then in edit mode, we're going to scale the entire thing up a little bit so it's slightly thicker, so that piece can just merge there, right in there. So this metal piece here is just going to merge inside there. Now there is one very small error I made, and that is that I want to bring this entire thing down here. And then if I select this object here, we'll go into edit mode. I'm going to deselect everything and go to wireframe. We're just going to box select this here, and I want to actually bring it down a bit farther. So just bring that down like that. So we're just going to bring the entire thing down just a little bit farther. So now if we select the new object again, go to edit mode, we're going to scale up just to make it a little bit thicker. So now we're going to extrude it and we're going to scale it, but let's hit Shift Z to exclude the Z axis. And we're just going to make it a bit thicker, kind of like that. And then select everything and recalculate the normals. Now, if I just go back to object mode, we'll select the microphone and just hide it. And then I can zoom in here and we can kind of see this better. So if I go into edit mode, I'm just going to hold down the Shift Alt key and select that loop there, and then Shift Alt select that loop there, and we're going to scale it. We'll hit Shift Z to exclude the Z axis and just bring it in right there so it just connects to that screw piece. Now we're going to go down here to the bottom and we're going to add a loop cut, and we're going to add the loop cut about in the center but a little bit smaller. Then if we go to the face select and select that loop of faces, we're just going to extrude this down on the Z axis. And if we go to front view, go to wireframe, just bring it down about that far. So it's just going to be a little bit farther than the prongs. So just like that. So now let's add a bevel modifier. So we'll go to the search here, add a bevel. We'll turn the segments up to like a 4 or a 3. Let's just do a 3. And then I can just scale it down so it's really small. Maybe make it like a 0.001, even smaller, like a 0.004, something like that. And then we'll shade it smooth. Let's also hit Control-1 to add a subdivision surface, and we'll just use the viewport and render levels of 1. So that's pretty good. We can now hit Alt-H just to bring back the object. So you can now see there that this microphone is just kind of resting there on that piece. So I now want to add another larger circle, which is going to go around here, and it's going to be about at the same distance. So let's go to the add menu. We're going to add another circle. We'll go to front view. We're going to bring the circle up and we're going to make it so it's the same height as that other circle. And then if we go into edit mode, we can scale it down, but this one's going to be a bit bigger than the first one. And this one, we're going to scale it so it's about 2.5 grids. So you can see there's 1 grid, then there's 2 grids, and then it'll be half a grid this far and half a grid that far. So in edit mode, let's go to front view. Let's bring it down, and then we're going to extrude the entire thing up. Let's actually go to the vertex select and then extrude the entire thing up like that. And then we could extrude out and make it thicker, but instead I'm going to use the solidify modifier. So we can just go here to add modifier. We can add solidify. We're going to drag it into the negative value so it's a little bit smaller instead, maybe scaled up a little bit, and then just drag that thickness there like that. And then let's also add a bevel. So we'll add the bevel modifier. Let's turn the segments up to 3. And then I can also turn the amount way down to maybe like a 0.0004, or maybe a little bit bigger than that. So I'm going to go with a 0.001, and then we'll shade it smooth. And then also we'll hit Control-1 to add a subdivision surface, and we're just going to use 1 level there. Now how the shock mount works is that there are these 2 pieces, and they are separate from the outer piece. So this microphone is screwed into this piece, but then there is basically some cords or some like cables, and they connect this piece to this piece, and that way in case the microphone gets bumped, the shock mount is going to kind of absorb kind of those bounces. So what we need to do is model kind of like some little hook pieces where the cords can hook onto. So we're going to add another cube. We'll go into edit mode, we'll scale the cube way down, and we're going to bring this over. And then if I go back to object mode, let's bring this up here so that the origin point is about in the very center there where those other pieces are. We'll go into edit mode, and we're going to scale up on the Z axis, scale it all down, and then scale it on the Z axis again. And we're just going to bring it in here so that it kind of connects. Let's now bring it up on the Z axis. And so what we can do is we can model one side, and then it's going to mirror to the other side with a mirror modifier. So we'll go to add modifier. We're going to add a mirror modifier, and instead of the X, we're going to mirror it along the Z. Now let's also select this face here, and we'll just delete the faces. We're now going to turn on the clipping button here on the mirror. So if I select the entire cube, we'll bring it down on the Z axis so it's connected. And then also let's scale it up on the Y axis so it's a little bit longer this way. So just like that, and we'll kind of stick it here so it connects to that other circle piece. So in edit mode, we're going to select this top face. Let's go to front view, and I want it to start out by being straight, but then when we extrude it, it's going to go back a bit. So we'll extrude it Let's rotate it. And we're just going to move it back a little bit just like that. So it kind of comes over and then it's straight before it connects to the mirror. So let's now add some loop cuts because what I want to do is create a little indent here where the cable can attach. So we'll hit Control R, we'll bring this up here, and then also we'll add 2 more loop cuts. So scroll your mouse wheel, left click and right click so it stays in the center. So now we have those loops there. So if we go to the face select, we can select these faces. And we can just delete all of those 3 faces. And then we can fill the center faces. So if we go to the vertex select, we're going to select these and we'll fill them. If I select these, we can hit F and then F, and that's going to fill it. Now also, I want to mirror it over on this direction. So we can click on the X-axis and now it's going to mirror it on the Z-axis and the X-axis. So there's one on the other side. Let's also add a bevel modifier to this because it's really sharp. So we're going to add a bevel modifier. I'll turn the segments up to 3, and I'll turn this amount down to a really small value of like a 0.003, and then we can shade the object smooth. And then also we'll go to the add menu and we're going to add a weighted normal. So just add the weighted normal, and that's going to kind of sharpen up those flat spots. Now, one other thing I want to do, if I zoom in right here, you can see it's not adding a bevel there. So if I go to the bevel modifier, I want to turn this angle limit. So the limit method, we're going to turn the angle to 0, and that way it's going to add a bevel to every single corner. So that's looking better. So now that we've finished modeling this piece, we can hit Shift D to duplicate. We're now going to hit R to rotate. We'll rotate it on the Z-axis by 90 degrees, and that way we now have these 4 points for the cables to connect. But then if I select all of these objects, we're going to rotate them on the Z-axis, and we're going to rotate it by 45 degrees. And that way they're going to be a bit offset. So instead of being exactly like this, they're going to be offset by 45 degrees. So then what we're going to do is we're going to model some more hooks right here. So the cable will go down, it'll connect to this hook, then it will go back up here, connect to this hook, and it will continue to go all the way around. So let's model those inner handles now. So I'll bring the 3D cursor into the center. Let's go to the add menu. We're just going to add a cube, and in edit mode, we're going to scale the cube way down. Let's go to front view, and I'm just going to bring this up here, go into wireframe, and just bring it up so the origin point is about in the center. And then if we go into edit mode, let's bring this over here, and we can scale it way down and scale it up on the Z-axis. So we're going to do pretty much the same exact thing where we're going to model one side and it will mirror it over to the other side. So I'll bring it in here, let's bring it up, and I can also scale it up on the Y-axis so it's a little bit longer, but not too much, just a little bit. Let's bring it up a bit farther, and then if I go to the face select, we're going to select the bottom face and delete it, and now we can add a mirror modifier. Now if I zoom out here, we do want to mirror it on the X-axis, but we also want to mirror it on the Z-axis. We'll also turn on the clipping button, and then we're just going to stick this here into the very center. And I want to scale it down so it's a little bit more thin, and then just stick it here so it's inside that piece. And actually what I want to do is bring it over to the other side, just like that. Maybe scale it down a little bit more, but it's going to be connected to that other metal piece. Let's now select this face here, the top face. We'll go to front view, and we'll go to wireframe. And we're going to extrude the face out, and then I can rotate it and move it over, extrude out again, rotate it and move it over. And we're just going to model a simple hook which the cord or the cable can connect to. So just like that, and then extrude it down and rotate it. Maybe go to the vertex select, and we're going to select the entire thing and bring it back a little bit and just kind of shape it how you want. We'll also bring everything down a little bit so it's not quite as tall. So like that. Now I want to copy the same modifiers as this object. So if I just select this object and then shift select the other object, we'll hit Control L, and we're just going to copy modifiers and then just shade the object smooth. Now you can see here it's given the bevel to these spots here, but I don't want that. So if we go back here to the limit method here on the bevel, I can just turn this up a bit bigger so that it doesn't add the bevel to some spots. So I'm going to turn the bevel angle to maybe like a 50. Now you can see it still looks a little bit rough, so I want to kind of smooth it out. So if I go into edit mode, I can just Alt select some loops there and hit Control B to add a bevel. Maybe just bring this back a little bit and just kind of smooth it out a little bit. So maybe select that loop, add a bevel. And then if we select these, we can double tap the G key to kind of edge slide it so it's a little bit more smooth. Add a bevel to this one, and maybe bring that, slide that up and kind of slide this down. And then finally, just to make it nice and smooth, we'll hit Control 1 to add a subdivision surface, and that smooths it out even more. And on the subsurf, the viewport and render levels are both going to be set to 1. And I like to just minimize these so it's a bit smaller so I can kind of see all the modifiers. So now that this is finished, we'll duplicate it. and then we'll rotate it on the z-axis, and we're going to rotate it by 90 degrees. So you can see because we offsetted these by 45 degrees, it can come down, connect to this hook, and then go up and connect to that hook, and then continue all the way around. Let's model the elastic bands now. So I'm going to center the 3D cursor, and if we go to the add menu, we're going to add the default Bezier curve. We'll go into edit mode, and we're just going to select everything and scale it way down. Let's go to top view, and I'm going to move everything over, and we're just going to be modeling it in this corner. And then we'll use a mirror modifier to mirror it over to all the other corners. So we'll just model it in this corner. So let's take this one, this first handle, and we'll bring it in here, bring it down. And then the second handle, we're going to move it right up closer there. And let's select everything. Actually, we'll go back to object mode and just bring everything up here so it's more in the center. And then if I go back into edit mode, this handle here is going to go way down, and this handle here is going to come way up. We can also rotate the angle of the handles to kind of fit that shape. Let's add a mirror modifier. So we'll go to add modifier, just add a mirror modifier. If it's mirrored on the x-axis, it'll be over on that side, but I also want to move it over on the y-axis. So by modeling on the x and y, it's going to be mirrored over on this side and also on this side. So now I can kind of zoom in closely to this handle, and we're going to just model this. So I'm going to scale it way down, make it really small, and then I can extrude it, and we're going to rotate it over. Let's rotate over here and just kind of stick it there in the middle. And maybe scale this down a little bit so the angle is sharper. And this one here, bring it down a little bit more. Maybe bring the entire thing up because it is going to have thickness. And we'll extrude it out again, kind of scale it down a little bit so it's just right in there. And then we're going to extrude this way down, and we're going to bring it way down here and stick it right there where that one hook is. So just bring it in there. Now before I connect it to the mirror, I'm going to bring it down here and just bring it really close and kind of rotate this, but I'm not going to connect this handle with the mirror. I'm going to now extrude this and bring it in, and this part is going to connect with the mirror. So we're going to turn on the clipping button, and then if I kind of drag this back, we can merge it with the mirror. Now something that I've found that helps is to change the clipping merge distance. Because basically if I turn this clipping merge distance bigger, it's going to start to have some issues where it's going to merge things which are too close. And because this object is quite small, I'm going to add an extra 0 to the merge distance. So it's going to be a 0.0001. I just find that that works a little bit better. So I'm just going to stick this in here so we now have this one curve in the center, and let's just bring it up. And let's also grab this curve handle and bring it down so it's really sharp, and maybe bring the entire thing up there. Also, it's a little bit like rotating, kind of squiggly. So just kind of rotate it, rotate that over so it's a lot more straight. So that looks a lot better. Let's go back up to the top, kind of see how that's looking. That's good. And then if we just go along here to the very bottom here to this part, this is the other side of the mirror. So I basically want to do the same thing. So I'll scale it down so it's really small. Kind of bring this back here. And then if I select the handle, let's bring it into the center, and then we can extrude it, and we'll stick it here and just merge it with the mirror, and then just scale that out like that. And we can also scale it on the x-axis to flatten it, and scale it on the z-axis to flatten it. And then just kind of rotate those handles so they're more sharp. Now I'm leaving some space here because we're going to add thickness to it. So that's why I'm leaving some space there instead of moving it up like that. All right, so it's all connecting with the mirror, and you can see now we have it going up and down and up and down. So now let's give it some thickness. So we'll go here to the object data properties, we'll go to the geometry bevel, and we'll just turn up this depth here, just turn up the bevel depth so it has some thickness, but that's a little bit too big. Let's make it even smaller. So I'll change it to a 0.0015. That is a bit better. Now I also want to duplicate this entire band and put it here on the bottom. So we're going to duplicate it and we're going to move it down. Then what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control M on this object. Control M will mirror it, and then we're just going to type Z and then enter. So we're basically mirroring the entire thing on the Z axis. Now if we go to front view, we can simply just move this up, and we can just fix it here and just stick it here into the hooks, just like that. So it's connecting to the hooks. Now it looks like right here, for some reason, this is kind of going down too far. So if we just go to wireframe in edit mode, we'll just bring that up there. All right, that's better. Let's go up to this one, and maybe this one I could box select these handles and bring it down a little bit. Let's go over to this one and maybe bring this up a little bit. All right, that's pretty good. And then just check to make sure the top one is still looking good. Yeah, so that's all good. So let's rename all the objects. So I'll drag this down here, and let's first open this up, open up the microphone so I can see all these. And what I want to do is just hold down the shift key and select all of these new objects that we modeled. So all of these pieces, also this one and this one. Let's hit M. We're going to go new collection. We're going to call this shock mount. call it shock mount and click on create. So now we have all those objects in the shock mount. And if I just hide the shock mount, you can see we also have a few more objects. So we're going to select this object and this object. We'll hit M. We'll move it here into shock mount. So now if I just kind of click on the check marks here, you can see we have the microphone, that's correct. We also have the cords, that's correct. And now we have the shock mount. So let's put this right here above the backup, and then we can just rename all the objects. So I'm just going to call this one band 1. We're going to call this one band 2. So I'll just hide these objects because I renamed them. We'll select this one here, and this one I'm going to rename to shock mount base. Then this one here, this is going to be called shock mount inner frame. So I'll hide that. And then this one here, this bigger circle, this one is going to be called shock mount outer frame. And I can hide that. And then we'll rename all the hooks. So this one here, I'm going to rename to hook small 1. And then we'll hide that. This one here, this is going to be called hook small 2 and hide that. This one here, this can be hook large 1 because it's the larger one. We'll hide that. And then this one here, I'll rename to hook large 2. And then I can hit Alt H to bring back all the objects. So everything is nicely named. So I'll hit Control S to save this again, and that'll be it for part 3 of the tutorial series. So I hope you're enjoying this so far. I hope you're easily able to follow along, and thank you so much for watching. And again, if you're enjoying these video tutorials and you'd like to help support me and this channel, a great way to do that is by joining my Patreon page, where you can support the channel monthly and get access to lots of Blender content. Or if you'd like to make a one-time purchase of one of my materials or 3D models or other Blender projects, then you can check out my Gumroad store, where I have everything up for sale on my Gumroad store, like different 3D models and assets, tutorial files, artwork project files, procedural materials, and lots more Blender content. So when the next part is released, it's going to be right up there on the end screen, and the link will be in the video description. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.